Alrighty. Welcome back, guys. We're here for episode 2 of the Daniel Duncan Show.
Welcome back.
Um, Holy cow, quite a bit's already happened on this Friday
Yeah,
morning. Um, might influence your mood, Dan, some of the news, but how are you doing this morning?
dude, I'm feeling pretty good. Snow's out, got no game tonight, so I'm just hanging out here at the house. Got nothing to do, so this is a great time for the both of us to just get on camera and do a second episode.
So yeah, if you guys haven't heard already, Washington's head coach Kalen DeBoer has announced that he is going to the University of Alabama to become the next head coach, replacing Nick Saban. Um, I know it shocked me quite a bit, but I think this morning, once we saw quite a few head coaches getting extensions, it seemed like it was kind of inevitable. Dan, what are your thoughts on this? How are you feeling? I know you're a little bit shocked from this news.
Yeah, this just came out right away. Uh, I actually heard about it last night, potentially happening when I was around the basketball guys for team dinner. And then all of a sudden today, this morning, I get up and I see all the notifications on my phone, and he ended up taking the job at Alabama.
Seriously, dude. I mean, I was pretty shocked as well. But it just kind of shows you how loyalty isn't valued if there's always going
Yeah,
to be a better offer. I saw a screenshot of his press conference and they referenced the fact that he'd only been at his previous schools for 4 years or less. But it
yeah,
seemed like he wanted to settle down in Seattle. And I know that that's the impression that most of the Husky fans got as well.
yeah. It was something where he just wanted to settle down, and his family was there. He had a daughter that was involved with the athletics. And just making this move, when that money comes in, when that offer just comes, it's like you take it immediately.
Right.
And knowing that he had only been like 4 years or less towards a coaching job, it's like, okay, after the national championship, there's offers out there, and it happens.
And when is the, coveted best job in college football? When is that going to be available? Something like Nick Saban retiring. That's a shocker itself. So
Yeah,
Alabama is probably the best job you could ask for in college football.
it's one of the best jobs in the country, and for a long time, who knew if anyone could replace Saban to begin with at Alabama?
Right. Right.
Because it looked like for him, it was going to be him there for as long as he could be the head coach and just stay there and build his legacy. And he honestly did that. He was a legacy. Um, it's shocking to me that DeBoer ended up leaving, but to be honest, it's one of the best jobs to take in the country.
I agree. And like we were talking about earlier before we got on, only 2 years that
Yeah,
it took for
two
him
years at
to turn
Washington.
around that program. There was
And
no coach, there was no hotter coach on the market.
yeah, there was no hotter coach, but also, you take a look at his record: 104 wins and 12 losses. That's the best record by far for a head coach in the NCAA.
Hmm.
So it's like, you look at the record and you look at what he's done on his with the status, like with what he's done, the track record at multiple
Right.
schools, including at Washington.
Hmm.
Um, Alabama looked at that, and that's something that I look for when a coach is trying to get another position at a different school.
Hmm.
Looking at the background, looking at what success he had. And
Right.
so Alabama made the right call and they made the right decision to get DeBoer.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, that's not the only, sad news out of Seattle as far as coaches leaving, as we'll also get to Pete Carroll.
Pete Carroll. Yeah.
He's he's leaving. So on this episode today, we're going to talk about recent NFL coaching changes, including also Nick Saban leaving Alabama and kind of talking about his career a little bit. And then we're also going to cover the wild card weekend of the NFL and
First weekend.
give our takes, give how we're feeling going into this week. Um, yeah, but first off, before we get into those things, Dan,
Yes.
you don't want to show the fans what's on your feet today? What slippers
Oh
are
yeah.
today?
Why
Let's
don't
do a
I do
quick
that
slipper
actually?
check. Oh, we got the pink bunnies.
The bunnies, baby.
Pink bunnies.
These are my all-time favorites right here. The
That's
bunnies.
right.
I've been wearing these for years.
And I should be wearing mine. I'm sorry about that. But Daniel, you did give me a pair of Christmas bunny slippers this year, and I love them.
I love it, dude. It was one thing that was on my list, and I was like, I'm getting Kellen some for Christmas.
So as the people will get to know, you have quite the collection of bunny slippers, and anybody who knows you know that
It's a category. There's like a bunch of them. Like it's not just bunnies, it's like everything else
that's right.
besides
Yeah,
like
not only bunnies. It's
yeah.
you can wear a pair of slippers, a different pair for every day of the month, practically.
You just there's a rotation. I got a huge rack right
Yeah.
beside me to my left, and it's just like full of like slippers.
Well, great, dude. I'm glad pink bunnies can't go wrong with those. Um,
Heck,
okay, so yes, after 12 or excuse me, 14 seasons in Seattle, three
yep.
with the Patriots, one with the Jets, obviously had his career at USC as well. Pete Carroll is no longer the head coach in Seattle, and as much as his future remains uncertain, he'll probably be having an advisory role within the team. Um, with Seattle, he had a 137 and 89 and 1 record. 2013 was the best year. 13 and
By
2
far the best.
Super Bowl champions, 9 straight winning seasons
Nine
as a
straight.
Seahawk coach. Um, and he's the only coach since 1990 to win both college and NFL championships. So,
Yep.
um, there was quite a bit of talk as the season went along, obviously missing the playoffs. That Monday night game seemed like Pete was really taking things in the end zone at the end of the game. Um,
Against Philadelphia, taking that in.
yeah, but it feels weird that it's actually over now, like that it's
It's
here.
an end of an era. It's
Yeah,
an end of an era for them. And it's like the next question is who's going to be that next guy? The one guy that I was thinking of this morning was Dan Quinn of the Dallas Cowboys.
a homecoming.
Yeah,
I could see
that
that.
was the one guy that was on my like potential head coaching list alongside Eric Bieniemy, who's with the Commanders. He
Yeah.
was on that list, and then there was a couple college guys. Who knows what Ryan Day is going to look like at Ohio State? I don't want Harbaugh because he's a
No,
cheater.
nobody.
But I see Seattle if they can. I mean, hiring Dan Quinn and having a homecoming reunion type thing, and him being the head football coach for the Seattle Seahawks.
How are you feeling though about moving forward without a Pete Carroll led Seattle team? What stood out to you as far as what made Pete so special in his 14 years as Seahawks coach?
Just bringing out the intensity and the energy that he always had. Like he never was like burnt out. Like he stayed true and just was like energetic, positive, brought the best athletes to play on his teams. the best marriage for a general manager and head coach, Snyder and Carroll. Like those two guys, they fit in and they just went hard at the draft, brought in all these superstar players and went to two Super Bowls, won one of them, two NFC championships. I mean, they Pete Carroll, to be honest, think about it. He's a legend here in Seattle, and he always will be.
Absolutely. And you think about all the moments, the viral moments of Pete showing off his personality.
Yes.
He was a player's coach.
Yep.
He brought out the best of anybody, and that was all because of how personable he felt as far as just the impression we got as fans. He was the best, and he never had too big of an ego or anything like.
Joe, he
He felt like he
he
was the most.
set the tone.
Yeah,
He set the tone for getting all of those guys, and to be honest, he's a player's coach. He brought out the best of his players.
yeah. It's going to be interesting. So far, only the Patriots have announced a replacement for head coach this morning, Gerard Mayo. Um, but I'm assuming,
Questionable there. Yeah.
like you said, maybe once Dallas either, depending on how far they go in the playoffs, I think that's when we'll know if Dan Quinn gets an interview or not.
Yeah. Yeah, and we'll see. I mean, I honestly think after when he's done with Dallas that he will get that interview and there will be some negotiating talks between Jody Allen and John Schneider up in the front office. And this is like the crucial time where the playoffs are going on and it's just like hard to like find candidates right now for those teams that didn't make the playoffs. Every year it's like a scramble mode to find the best candidate for the head coaching job.
But yeah, obviously Pete Carroll being one of the guys to announce their um, retirement or separation between um, teams. But Nick Saban, after 17 years at Alabama, has announced that he's
17.
done. Obviously, he had other jobs as well in the NFL, Miami and Cleveland, as well as coaching for Michigan State and LSU. Um, over an eight 80% winning percentage his entire career. Um, 31 bowl
Seven
games,
national championships.
7 national championships, undisputed GOAT of our era, I would
Yep.
say. Were you shocked when you saw the news?
I wasn't shocked when I heard about that news because I think during this year it was tough for him to like find the right players for his team. Like Alabama, through our generation, through our era of like watching college football,
Hmm.
they've just been so deep. And I think for
Yeah,
this year, it was just tough to see like who was going to be a part of his team.
yeah.
And so, I mean, it's a grueling competition grind. And so it got to him, and it was for the best interest for him not to return to coaching.
I know we were talking about this a little earlier too, but um, we talked about in the past Coach K with Duke announcing his
Yes,
plans to retire prior to the season starting. And obviously, it's more common for players to retire than coaches. And we've seen quite a few players do the same thing, announcing their intent to retire prior to the season. And then that sets kind of like, a last ride kind of mentality in the clubhouse, in the locker room. Um, but on the other hand, there's Nick Saban and other people, Pete Carroll, um, who decided to announce their intentions on retirement after the season. And you think of that, at least from my perspective, I think of it as respectable in the way that they're not trying to shift the focus to them. And have multiple narratives being thrown around. Um, it's way more low key of a move to do, and I don't know. I like that. As much as coaches deserve and players deserve
Yeah,
that sort of, one last dance. And it's nice to know beforehand that somebody's going to retire. Obviously, the shock factor definitely is
it
less.
kicks in.
Yeah, but so what do you think? Do you think it's more respectable to do to announce your intentions prior to the season or announce them afterward?
So I brought this up to you late couple nights ago, and it's always like you don't want the speculations of them like retiring like during the year. They
Mm-hmm.
want the season to play out. But
Mm-hmm.
usually it's like 50-50. It can happen either way. It can happen before the season, and then everyone knows about it, like right up the fans, the players, the front office, they all know about it. For college, it would be, the ADs, the administration, they would know about it immediately. But it's just like you don't know when that's going to happen, and it's it's 50-50. It's like you can know during before the year, and then you can also just wait until the end of the year and just be like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, that's it.
Yeah. Do you think it would affect the locker room at all, this type of decision, if you were to, if Nick Saban was to be like before the year, um, I'm not coming back after this year. You think that impacts the locker room?
It does impact the locker room because it's like, okay, are we all bought into the process? Are we all in to finish out this final year of this
Hmm.
head coach that's there? So it's sometimes you can lose them immediately, and sometimes they just are like, oh, I get it. Our coach
Hmm.
is going to retire. We have this,
Yeah.
let's finish the year out for this head coach. Let's get him towards the playoffs or the championship. So it's like you can lose them or you have them all in.
So yeah, like we mentioned earlier, Gerard Mayo was just announced as this morning as the replacement for Bill Belichick. Obviously, Bill Belichick had a great career as well, but um, let's talk about
Belichick and Saban, they
yeah.
they had a relationship going all the way back towards when Belichick and his dad Steve was at Navy. So the two of them, they knew each other very young. And then once Belichick was under Parcells as an assistant, they became close, and Nick got a assistant job from Belichick. He helped him when Jerry Glanville was with the Houston Oilers at the time. And then when Belichick was the head coach at Cleveland, he gave him the defensive coordinator job. And so the two of them, they've had a relationship going back for years.
Three different legends, all
Yeah.
within all within, 24 to 48 hours, like just end of an era, just like that.
And it's the perfect age for them to retire at. I mean, they were in their 70s. And it's like the grind and having, these new things like for Saban, like the NIL,
Yeah.
and for Belichick and Carroll to like, the roster's changing year in and year out. Who knows? Like,
Hmm.
are we going to be all in for the future? And so it was questionable for them. And it's like, gosh, we got one more year, and it just came to an end. The clock was ticking, and it ran out on him.
Yeah, obviously Belichick's future plans are still up in the air a little bit. He could be still a dark horse for coach for a different team. But out of all the coaching jobs, Tennessee, Washington, Carolina, Vegas, LA Chargers, Atlanta, um, which job do you think is the most attractive right now? If you were a head coach and you wanted to have your pick out of those teams, where are you going?
I would definitely go to the Chargers. Like you look at their team and they got quarterback, they got receivers. They do need a running back. The defensive line is questionable because there's a lot of cap space that is going to be up in the air from the front office standpoint. So it's like
Mhm.
questionable there. But I honestly think the Chargers would be one of the best top jobs for any coaching candidate roster wise.
Definitely. I'd say the window or when they can win, as far as comparing the other teams, the Chargers have definitely have um their window is short right now. And
Yeah, it's short.
but they have so many different roster moves that they're gonna have to make some big decisions on. Like you said, on that line, both Bosa and Khalil Mack on that line, it's like you're gonna have to choose.
There's a lot of
So-
money involved either between one or the other. It's like I mean, if you keep them both, the salary cap is going to come a factor into that. So it's like money is a huge issue there.
And then on the offensive side, two aging receivers who have battled injuries the past few years. Keenan Allen did a great job at staying healthy this year until the end
Yeah,
of the year, but both Mike Williams and Keenan Allen above 30. Something's got to give. The Chargers are young in some spots, but um, yeah, if they want to be able to extend Herbert and have the money to do so, they're going to have to make a lot of moves.
it's also the salary cap and then the draft. I mean, you got a lot of young guys that are going to come into the new team once, the draft comes around in April. So it's like you got to make sure you have the money for those players as well.
And I don't think anybody, as a Charger fan, thought they would have a top. What is it?
Yeah,
I know they have a top 10 pick. I think it might be five, might be
it's
six.
in the top five, maybe
Yeah.
six, somewhere around there.
So that's a big decision right there.
Yeah,
So whoever takes that job, there's a lot of roster construction that's going to have to go down.
yeah. Reconstructing that roster and just evaluating from position to position. Like, I mean, the defensive line is going to have to, it's one of those things where you got to take a look at because you got Bosa and you got Mack, and then secondary, they had some issues. So, I mean, there's a lot of big moves to be made.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see as the playoffs go on who starts to get interviews.
Yeah.
Alrighty, let's move on. Should we talk about playoff matchups for the wild card weekend?
Yeah, let's talk about the NFL wild card matchups for this weekend. Super wild card weekend.
Oh yeah. So starting in the NFC, um, our first matchup we're going to talk about is Eagles versus Buccaneers.
Mhm.
Um, they played earlier this year in September. It was
25-11.
very one-sided. Um, Tampa only had 174 yards, 12 first downs in that game, but that's not the same Tampa Bay team anymore, and it's not the same Philly team anymore.
Yeah.
Philly, Dan, they're
A 1-5 record in their last 6 games since going 10-1.
yeah. I don't know if anybody expected this. I think there's been quite a bit that's been exposed on the Eagles side. And going into this game, Philly's allowed over 415 yards on total offense. The defense has just been not doing well. Hurts has the finger injury. Um,
Oh yeah, he's dealing with that finger, man. He's that week against the Giants last week.
mhm.
He just, he couldn't throw the ball. down the field the way that he wanted to. And so, that's a question mark right there.
No, there are quite a few teams um this season that dominated last year, and I think uh it's not their year this year. And so I'm gonna go Buccaneers in this one. I think the Eagles, there are quite a few problems that need to be addressed, and I don't see them making it out of the first round.
Yeah, I have Tampa Bay too, and it's just because, Philly's not the same team that they were a year ago. I mean, Hurts and Brown and all those other guys that they have, they're studs. I mean, they're just not the same team that they were for the first 11 games. So I got Tampa Bay in this one. I have them winning by at least 7 points.
Yes, and then in the second matchup, oh, before we go, they did play 2 years ago. We were talking about this because we remember this
Yep.
game. Tampa Brady,
Tom Brady
Tampa,
with Tampa Bay.
Tampa Bay beat them 2 years ago in the playoffs. Yeah, moving on to the next game, Rams versus Lions. Big narrative
Uh,
here is obviously
a
the
huge one.
Jared
Homecoming
Goff.
for Stafford coming
Yes,
back to Detroit.
yes. The trade went down in 2011, excuse me, 2021. That sent Goff,
21.
that swapped quarterbacks. Been a great year for the Lions. You had them winning the division at the start of the year. Um,
Yep.
Dan Campbell, potential coach of the year candidate. They could easily be a game better after that Dallas game. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, so obviously they have not won playoff games since 91, haven't hosted games
1991.
since 94.
Yep.
Um, and we were talking the other day about the last time they were in the playoffs was against the Seahawks.
2016, the playoffs.
Yep.
And they had Thomas Rawls in the backfield. They had a huge day that day. And Tyler Lockett, Doug Baldwin, they were throwing the ball a lot. And that was the last time they were in the playoffs.
So yeah, and then the Rams. Nobody expected them to be this good this year. Very explosive. Obviously Puka Nacua set both the yards and receptions record last week. Um,
Yep.
and
Jalen Waddle, the rookie record, and then
that's
all-time
right.
record for yards.
That's right. Um, how are you feeling going into this game? It's probably going to be really weird on both sides as
Yeah.
far as being a Detroit fan, being a Detroit player. I don't know how many teammates of the Stafford era are still there, but still. And then obviously Matthew Stafford, that's going to be really weird.
Stafford coming back into his own building. And I've been thinking about this matchup for a couple of days now. Detroit running the ball with Jahmyr Gibbs, getting him isolated on those like screen passes. That's going to be huge. And then there's a couple other big players that are just going to have to go off. Aiden Hutchinson, he's going to have to go up against the offensive line of the Rams and just punish Stafford. He's going to have
Mhm.
to bring all out pressure. He's going to have to get sacks on him. Uh, I see Detroit winning their first playoff game in over 30 years, and I see them just celebrating in Detroit.
I agree. I have the Lions in this one too. However, in a year that not many people expected the Rams to be here, and considering how they valued draft picks in the past with all of their trades and they're buying into that one Super Bowl, they hit on quite a few picks this year.
Yeah,
Late round
Puka
guys.
Nacua, fifth
Yeah,
round.
Byron Young, and then one of their D tackles who just got announced as Rookie of the Month. I think. they'll have quite a few questions in the offseason, but Stafford has shown no signs of slowing down.
No,
Still looks amazing.
he looked amazing this year, and you know, with Puka Nakua coming in and taking over when Cup was injured, and then when Cup came back, I mean,
Mhm.
when he was just doing it by himself, and then when they got Cup back, it was like a dynamic duo, and then Kyron Williams from Notre Dame came in the mix.
Hmm.
Young for on the defense, and you still got Aaron Donald showing his presence, being one
Hmm.
of the best defensive players in this league. So I mean, the Rams, they came out of nowhere. I mean, they got off to one of the best starts at the end of the year. I mean, they were just explosive on offense and defense, all until the regular season ended.
That's right. They beat Seattle both games this year, and then against a really good Baltimore team, gave them a bit of a test. Um, Moving on to the next game, Packers versus Cowboys, Dan.
Oh yeah.
Jordan Love
This
going
is
to Jerry's world.
Jordan Love.
He's going to Jerry's world.
Yep.
So yeah, Jordan Love, obviously, if you guys didn't know, I'm a big Green Bay Packers fan. I'm an
Huge
owner.
fan.
One of my one of my only claim to fame. Um, but yeah, Jordan Love after um, Brian Gutekunst, the GM, he said 6 games in the year that, or excuse me, 7 games, that these last 10 games are going to show um, if we are going to have to be looking for quarterback in the future or not. Jordan Love's only on a 1 year deal right now after that rookie contract. And in those last 10 games, Dan, he's been the best quarterback in the NFL, arguably. Um, this
Yeah,
season,
I believe he has. I mean, he's been lights out lately ever since the end of the regular season.
um, 4,100 yards, 32 touchdowns, 11 picks. Um, Better numbers. Obviously, there's one more game in a regular season compared to previous years, but
Yep.
better numbers than Rodgers. And then when you think about the Packers playing at AT&T Stadium, they're 5-0, including that one Super Bowl
One Super
45
Bowl
against
title.
the Steelers, and then that playoff
Steelers.
win. Um, Back in yeah I forget what year that was in, but obviously the Aaron Rodgers sideline pass to Jared Cook to set up the Mason Crosby winning field.
Wasn't that 2017?
That's right. Yeah, it was 2017, and that spawned the meme of celebrating with, you can't celebrate if there's any time on the clock against Aaron Rodgers, and he proved.
Right.
So yeah, another narrative going into this game, it's Mike McCarthy coaching against his former team.
Our team.
And as much as he's had quite a bit of success this year, Dallas's last win against Green Bay is 2016. And since 2004, they're 10-3.
10 and
So
3 overall.
um, Aaron Rodgers is not in town anymore. The Packers should not be
Jordan
here.
Love.
They've had the underdog mentality all year. Um, when Aaron Rodgers was in town, it felt like players were playing to not disappoint him. He His body language, he didn't seem like a team guy. And then obviously his ego took over and in the latter part of his career. Jordan Love, he's the guy that hosts team dinners every week, offense and defense. He's the guy that you want to be, leading your team. And
He's the main guy in Green Bay. He hosts those dinners, and I saw them on social media recently. He's the man for Green Bay.
and if you want to think about, obviously the Favre Rodgers love narrative in, um, sitting quarterbacks before they're ready. Um, there had to be something out of that situation for Love to learn from Rodgers. As much as I was a bit nervous, when towards the middle of the season, especially after that Monday night game against the Raiders, threw three picks. But that's the thing. He was always going to be aggressive. I just think LaFleur definitely improved the offense. The play calling
Yeah.
has just been masterful. Um, and we could talk about Dallas all we want.
Oh
There's no,
yeah, we can talk all about the Cowboys. We can talk about, Prescott to Lamb. We can talk about Micah Parsons. We can talk about their defense. I mean, we can talk all about Dallas, but I mean, this is going to be one of those classic battles. And we saw it, back in 2017. The main thing is, and I looked it up recently, in the last 50 years, the Green Bay Packers have the youngest roster going into the playoffs.
that's right. And that tells you it's like as much as, regardless of the outcome of this game, uh, it's a win to be here as a Packer, as a fan. You feel like they can make a lot of noise in the playoffs this year, especially with all the momentum coming into this game.
Yeah,
And we're back. Okay,
we're back,
so
baby. Let's go.
moving on to the AFC wild card weekend. First game we're gonna get into is Browns Texans. Um, CJ Stroud, Dan, potential Rookie of the Year candidate. Um,
Potential rookie of the year, baby.
threw for over 4,100 yards, 23 touchdowns, five picks in only
Five
15 games.
picks.
Only 15 games, nonetheless.
Only
Um,
15.
he could have led the league in passing if he had played his those two other games. He had a concussion. Um,
Yeah, yeah. He could have easily played those two, but he just wanted to sit out. But it's part of the game.
yeah, and it didn't matter, right? Because they ended up
Yeah.
winning the division anyway. So, yeah, he was third in yards per pass. He likes to air it out quite a bit. Um, funny
Deep
enough,
ball.
yeah, funny enough, because obviously there's been quite a bit of comparison between him and Bryce Young this year. Um, and I know Bryce Young missed a few games as well. Bryce Young had 28 more passing attempts this year than CJ Stroud. Um, and as much as, Bryce Young was throwing it and kind of running for his life, throwing prayers. CJ Stroud, like we mentioned, like the deep ball, like last week, the first drive of the game, 75-yard touchdown to Nico Collins, first play.
First play of the game to Collins for 75 yards.
Yeah.
He's a guy that loves to air it out and go deep.
hmm Um, and then on the other side, or I mean, also D'Amico Ryan's potential head coach of the year, has done a phenomenal job, especially as much as everybody talking about their doubts as far as a defensive-minded coach and
Yeah.
pairing him with a rookie quarterback. But it seems like it's been an amazing match so far.
So far, it's worked. And also, finding those concepts of opening the offense up, which I love. I mean, taking those deep shots down the field. And this was supposed to be a rebuild for the Texans. Everyone was saying rebuild because of Stroud coming in, taking over the quarterback role, but they ended up getting the AFC South title, and now they're here in the playoffs. I said that they were going to make the playoffs before the year
That's
began,
right. That's right.
which, to be honest, it's one of those wild card scenarios where it's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, here's the deal. They're young. They got a new coach. It's happened before in the playoffs. It's happened before with a rookie head coach and a rookie quarterback making the playoffs and actually having success.
That's right. And On the flip side of things, though, you got Joe Flacco, who
Oh, yep.
got up off the couch, took a commercial flight to Cleveland,
Out to Cleveland.
and got himself a starting job, and he's took it and ran with it ever since. Um, he sat out the last week. They had already wrapped up a playoff spot, and they weren't going to beat out the Ravens. So, a
Usually
little
the
bit,
thing to do. It's
yeah,
usually the thing that happens.
a little bit more rest. But last game for the Texans, the division was on the line. They had
Yeah,
quite a bit to play for. Um, and we were talking earlier about just, momentum and how sometimes, too much time to prepare for a matchup can hurt you. And so
yeah.
um I like the Texans in this one as much as everybody, loves the storyline of Flacco or Joe Flacco, if you want to say it like you're from Baltimore.
Elite quarterback.
As Trump said, an elite quarterback. Because of that arm of his, that arm of his.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm loving what the Texans are doing right now. And like you said, this was supposed to be a rebuild year. They traded their first rounder from this year's draft to go up and get Will Anderson Jr., who could be I mean, he should lose it to Devin Witherspoon, but
Witherspoon.
he is a depoy or a rookie defensive player of the year for sure.
Yeah, and the Texans are my sleeper. I said before the year they were going to make the playoffs. People were saying like, "What are you talking about? They're going to rebuild," but they ended up getting into the playoffs. And I see Houston winning this game, and I see just Stroud airing it out like we've seen all year, and the
Hmm.
defense coming up with aggressive schemes, aggressive play calls to get pressure on Flacco. Flacco has had easy matchups where he's getting the ball on target to Amari Cooper and his playmakers. So I see them getting pressure up on Flacco and harassing him. And I got the Texans winning this one. It's going to be close. I'll say a field goal.
Field goal separating the two. That sounds about right to me. I agree. Flacco, like we said, hopped off the couch a few months ago. He's had a pretty
In
clean
his
pocket
late
so far.
30s. Yeah,
He's had a
in his
clean
late
pocket so far.
30s.
Yeah.
And
Um,
he's had time to throw the football.
mhm. So, like you said, I think if Houston can apply pressure, um, they'll be able to get the win.
Yeah.
All righty, should we move on to the next matchup?
Yeah, let's move on to the next matchup. We talking Chiefs Dolphins?
Yes, we are. So, obviously, weather is going to play a big part into this matchup.
Huge.
It's supposed to be -2 with 25-mile-an-hour winds. Um,
Jeez.
Chiefs, obviously they're used to the climate, but this is pretty intense, Dan.
Yeah.
I'm seeing um a lot of really good seats on Ticketmaster on ticket sites for pretty cheap. I don't blame fans for not wanting to show up to,
I don't blame them either because of how cold it's going to be.
but that
It's happened before in the past with other playoff games where it gets cold and then all of a sudden the fans don't show up.
but the question is, will the Dolphins show up then? Because,
Oh,
um,
that's a hard question right there because of all the injuries and our main man Frank the Tank going crazy right now.
that's right. Miami is blessed with incredible weather all year. And like mentioned, they're 0-9 in games below 40 degrees since
Low
2017.
40.
Um, the Chiefs, they played in this type of weather, this negative uh weather against the Titans in 2016.
Yep.
Um, but Tua, he's 1-4 in games below
One
50.
and four.
Um, but you think about if the passing game is going to be so affected in this matchup, if it's going to be a run game, ground and pound. Um, Mostert is playing. I know he's been questionable all week. Same with Waddle. They're both playing, but we were talking about how much the run game is going to be a factor. Obviously, the Chiefs, or excuse me, the Dolphins this year, they had run up the score early and then
running it up,
typically just use the running game to just you
seal it.
know, to seal it, but they would still put up an insane amount of points. They have two very solid options in the backfield. Kansas City does as well. And obviously, like we said, they're used to this climate. They've played in this before. But it'll be interesting to see what Coach McDaniel cooks up, because obviously we know the Chiefs are very known for their passing game. But if that's limited, Dan, do you think the running game could help them pull this win out?
For Kansas City, yes, they will run the ball just with Pacheco. They'll have him isolated up top as a receiver. Uh, the big thing is, will Kansas City, will their receivers catch footballs? Will they have those catches early? I don't know. Maybe late if it's necessary to throw the ball, but I
Mhm.
see a grounded pound, just pounding the rock, giving Pacheco big yards, putting McKinnon in situations if necessary. So this is going to be old school football, just wearing down the offensive line up front, just winning that battle up on the line of scrimmage.
So it's been since 2001, right? Since the Dolphins won their last playoff game.
Yeah, it's been 2001, and that was against the Colts.
So our practically our entire lives, we've never seen the Dolphins win a playoff game. Um,
No,
but this Chiefs team this year is not the same Chiefs team in previous years.
it's not the same because of them not having the big playmakers at receiver.
No, and offensive line issues, it just seems like Mahomes, he's been very out of sorts this season.
Yeah,
And he has his initial read, I don't think he trusts it. And so he's very prone to start dancing and kind of getting a little frantic in the pocket.
he's
So
trying to get space, and he hasn't found the spacing yet to throw the football down the field and trusting the receivers because the receivers haven't made the huge plays.
no, and it seems like in the past, in order for Travis Kelce to have that success, he relies on those deep threats down the field so he can, be the dump down because he's so good at finding that open space.
Yeah,
And since I don't think the receivers have been given the same amount of respect this year, Kelsey's had quite a bit of attention on him, and he hasn't been able to be as effective this year.
yeah, and he's had Kelsey. I mean, we expect him to make the big catches and to have over 100 yards with two or three touchdown catches. But this year, he's had the whole Taylor Swift nonsense get to his head a
Hmm.
little bit. First
Hmm.
showing up. I mean, it's great cameo, but not performing on the field and not having a huge success in the stats. It's like,
Hmm.
where is he? And Mahomes hasn't had the time to find him.
Yeah, and they just announced all pro this morning. Travis Kelce did not make first or second team. It was George Kittle and
Yeah,
Sam Laporta. So we're not used to Travis Kelce not being this dominant. We're not used to Patrick Mahomes not being this dominant. So
yeah.
um, you know, I like to think Miami could break the curse. I don't like the weather, but I don't think the Chiefs, even if they win this game, I don't see them making it past the next round.
I'm gonna throw you a little bit of a curveball here.
I'm ready.
I'm gonna say Miami wins this game.
Really?
I'm gonna say the Dolphins win, and it's gonna be Mostert, it's gonna be Wilson, it's gonna be them making the big chunk yardages because I don't think Kansas City's defensive line up front can stop the Miami running attack. And you got Tyreek Hill coming back to Kansas City. You have Waddle healthy. You can isolate them on check downs and screen passes, and
Hmm.
they will go down the field for big plays.
Exactly. Like you said, might not be as many deep shots this game, but even behind the line of scrimmage, screens, stuff like that, the after the catch ability, um, they excel at way more than the Chiefs.
And I know Miami, I mean, they don't have, Chubb, they don't have Phillips, they don't have Howard and all
Hmm.
those other guys. But the next man up mentality, I love. And so with Miami putting in these new guys, it's like they're going to step up and wherever Mahomes is going to throw it, they're going to make a huge play and they're going to get sacks on Mahomes. They're going to pressure him. And Mahomes has had tough time this year when pressure gets to him. So I see that being a huge factor in this game. My
Yeah,
favorite pass rusher, 94. Look out for him, Christian Wilkins. Look out for him.
that's right. Um, and also Mike McDaniel, thinking about they got far. They didn't make any noise in the postseason last year. Um, and the narrative of not winning a playoff game since 2001. I similar to like we were talking about Pete Carroll earlier in just, being a player's coach and being relatable, being not too intimidating from, a coach to a player relationship. I'm a big Mike McDaniel fan. I know you are
I
as
love
well.
McDaniel. Yeah,
Um, I want to see him win tomorrow.
I do too.
And I think the Chiefs, they're still going to be a great team, but I think this year, obviously things haven't gone right. And so I don't really feel like giving them hope. So yeah, I'll
No,
agree with you and take the Dolphins in this one as well.
sweet, dude.
Alrighty. And in the last game, from the AFC, not that great of a matchup. We got
No, it's not that great.
No, we got the Steelers and Bills, and Bills went on a big run at the end of the year. Tony Romo, of course, called it. As much
Yep.
as Frank the Tank was upset, Tony Romo was right. And then the Steelers, after somehow sticking in this whole thing, when they would,
Fighting their way.
yeah, they'd be outgained on offense in every win they had no business being in. It's just, but they're here. And they've
Yeah.
had three different quarterbacks, this year. No TJ Watt in this one though, Dan. And
No Watt.
he's led the league in sacks the last 3 years. He is the heart and soul of that team, a team that's for the most part, their identity is, up in the air. TJ Watt's been their main bright spot. And so even if he played, still say Buffalo pulls that one out, but him not being there, yeah, Buffalo by a few touchdowns.
When Buffalo was 5-5 after when they lost to Denver on Monday night, you heard Josh Allen. The clock is ticking.
Hmm.
Time is running. That set the message right there for Buffalo. When you heard that message from Allen, everyone bought into the concept. Hey, listen, we're not playing really well. We've lost. We ended up losing to Denver. They ended up getting on a roll, and their offense is clicking. Their offense is one of the best offenses I've seen in the last, all the way up towards the end of the regular year. It's on fire.
I don't know if there's a better dual threat quarterback in the league now than Josh Allen. Um,
Yeah,
I think he surpassed Jalen Hurts as far as a rushing threat, and he has no fear.
they're
Whenever,
the other team that can run the Philly push or whatever they call it.
yeah, yeah, whatever that's called. But yeah, no, Josh Allen, as much as Stephon Diggs hasn't had his type of year, and whether it be him, getting more pressure, he's been forced to do a lot more out of the pocket, and he's excelled at it.
Yeah,
The turnovers are always going to be there, but that's just the type of home run player he is. But for him to be able to do what he does on his legs, um, they could make quite a bit of noise in the postseason.
they're one of the best deep teams. If you take a look at what they've had to deal with, without Von Miller and then him coming back into the lineup from time to time. But I mean, they have a deep team when it comes to, defense, offense. I mean, Diggs has had his moments,
Mhm.
but the big guy that really, two of the guys that have impacted their offense, if you take a look at it, James Cook and Dalton Kincaid, those two young guys have just been lights out.
Absolutely. And I feel like Cook was written off pretty early. Um, and it's hard to get that respect when your quarterback is such a great athlete on his legs. But that dual threat with both your quarterback and your running back being able to,
Yeah,
um, that how as a defense are you able to react to that? And teams have struggled against it so far. So, um, yeah, a lot. The Buffalo, Josh Allen, there's not as much pressure on him. Obviously, Singletary, he was a great running back for them, but Cook's been able to, advance the offense for sure.
Cook has been their guy, and he's stepped up into big time play roles, and he's just you can line him up once again. I mean, I've said it the last couple of times. You can line him up as a receiver if you
Hmm.
want to. He's a great pass catcher out of the backfield, and him, just cutting back and getting more yardage. I mean, and also up the gut when they run goal line,
Hmm.
he pushes the pile. He's like a barrel.
That's right.
You can't even stop him.
No. Um, but yeah, so you got the Bills in that one.
Yeah, I got Buffalo winning this one. This will be a blowout. This is going to be like a 20-point blowout for the Bills.
I forget, going back to that Packers Cowboys, who did you have in that one?
I have Green Bay in that one because I just feel like Jordan Love is just going to duel it out. It will be a classic matchup, classic battle. I hate the Cowboys. I can never
Hmm.
stand Dallas. Prescott, watch him throw off his back foot, couple interceptions. I'm hearing that Jair is out. Is that
I
is
think he's
that
playing. I
okay?
think he's playing.
Because I heard from one of the sources. I don't believe in him, but one of our guys for basketball, he was telling me that Jair was out. But if he's playing, that's good because they need that.
Yeah. It looks like he's playing. But so yeah, let's see, we both have the Bucks, we both have the Lions, we both have the Packers, we both have the Texans, we both have the Dolphins, and we both have the Bills. So that's our wild card weekend wrap up. Quite
Super
a bit.
wild card.
Yeah, so we had quite a bit to go over this week. Initially, we were just going to make this a wild card week, but there's been the most insane coaching carousel that's happened over the course of the last 3 days, and so we had to talk about it.
Yeah, it was just one of those hot topics that was out there that needed to get out. It was first take news. It was out there,
Hmm.
and we just needed to talk about it.
So. Seattle fans, the future is up in the air, for football, both Seattle Seahawks, the Washington Huskies.
Huskies.
Um, I know it's a tough time for you as a fan of both, but it'll be interesting where they go from here. And, I like what you said, the potential coaching options they have, but
Yep.
it'll be interesting to see. Seattle's in a lot of pain right now. Washington State as in general. You never expect in the same,
Yeah.
you know, 2 day time span to,
Both
not,
your college and pro teams without a head coach.
yeah. So, um, playoff games this weekend, Saturday and Sunday. We'll be
Monday
back.
night.
Yes, we'll be back next week. And I guess our content kind of depends on, week to week. We're open for suggestions on anything, and we still would want to do a little bit more of an introduction video on ourselves,
Yep.
and that story. But next week we'll probably have to cover the results of the wild card weekend, and we'll also look forward to getting into a little bit more baseball news once more free agencies, once more free agents sign and rosters fill out. But yeah, so Dan, any final thoughts?
I'm excited for the first weekend of the NFL playoffs. I just love to see all the great matchups out there. Huskies, see what happens. Seahawks, see what happens. There's a lot of questions out there, a lot of shocked reaction. So we'll see what happens in the near future here in the next couple of months.
Yeah, but thank you everybody for tuning in. If you're new, subscribe, hit the like button. We would very much so appreciated that. Um, And yeah, we look forward to bringing everybody content every week. So yeah, thank
Yeah,
you guys. This was
thank you very
episode
much.
this was episode 2 of the Daniel Duncan Show. I'm Kellen Morad signing off.
I'm Daniel Duncan, signing off.
Awesome. We'll see you guys next weekend. Peace.
See ya. Peace.